Buongiorno a tutti, sono Maurizio Pesce di Wired e mi occupo della parte che genericamente viene definita tecnologia, dai gadget, le cose elettroniche ai social network ormai sempre più integrati. Hanno qualcosa di molto simile sotto, no? Software, codice e ultimamente una cosa che si chiama intelligenza artificiale. L'avete sentito poco fa, 2 miliardi di immagini al giorno passano da una piattaforma in particolare che è quella di tutte le applicazioni di Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp. È una quantità di dati incredibile che viene ovviamente lavorata per far migliorare le macchine. Il prossimo intervento, intanto, vi avviso, è in inglese. Chi avesse voglia di ascoltarlo in italiano, c'è un'app su iPhone e su Android, Wire Next Fest, e c'è la traduzione simultanea. Questo è il momento di andarla a scaricare se ne avete bisogno. La traduzione è fatta da un umano, non ancora in tempo reale da una macchina, ma ci stiamo lavorando. Il prossimo intervento dunque viene portato avanti da un ricercatore scientifico del FAIR di Facebook, cioè il Facebook Artificial Intelligence Research. Quindi chiamo sul palco Antoine Borde.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name is Antoine Borde. I'm a researcher at Facebook Artificial Intelligence Research. And when the slides are appearing, I could start.
Con una velocità fino a 110.000 giri al minuto, il motore
I guess. Is it now?
Rispetto ad altri.
Should I do anything? Or? Yeah. Okay. If you have any questions. Okay, that's me. Yeah, AI. So the whole day is about AI. AI is something I've been doing for like 12 years now at Facebook now. And today, basically, I'm going to explain you what we do at Facebook. I'm trying to show you some examples of why we do it and how. I'm really happy to actually go right after the first talk by Ricardo because he explained all the basics. So I can go really into like what we do now after and how we use what he explained, mostly deep neural networks and this kind of stuff. So actually, I can do a lot of reference to what he said in what I'm going to talk about. So I just wanted to give you a brief introduction about what is AI at Facebook and how do we think AI. So this is basically what we talk about the 10-year roadmap for Facebook. So you can see the products that are pretty mature, that we call the ecosystem, like Facebook and Instagram on one hand. And on the other hand, you see what we call the technologies, which are like basically the big bets and when we are thinking that we are trying to shape the future. So these are like 3 main parts. There is the VR and the AR part, which is led by the Oculus team. There is the connectivity lab with the drones and all the Internet.org program. And in the middle, you see AI, which is basically where we are, the Facebook AI Research Lab. We have 100 people in 3 locations in the world. And we are going to try to push the boundaries of what AI can do. So for us, AI is made into 4 different pillars. Of course, they share a lot of components, but this is how we see it, and this is how I'm going to talk about it today. We have perception, which is about what the machine sees, and how the machine sees and sees the world. Then you have what is understanding and learning, which is how the machine is learning to do some reasoning. Then we have like some prediction, which is very important for us, is that how can we have a machine that can try to have an idea of what the world is and how the world might evolve if I take some action or some others. And the last one is planning, which is can we have like machine that can actually do some strategy and design some strategy to solve complex tasks. So the basic of this is like perception, and this is what I would like to start with. Perception is basically what is going to the machine to see, and it's related to what Ricardo said about like having deep neural network to do like image understanding and classification and this kind of thing. But the first point I would like to make is like we're talking about AI now, we're talking about AI a lot. The main method that is used in AI is, for image recognition is convolutional neural nets. This is a video from like 1993, 25 years ago, by Yann Lequin, who is the head of Facebook AI Research, and he was already using deep neural networks to solve an image recognition task. And this is a live video. He was working in real time. And this was at the time for doing unwritten character recognition. And this was like on a very old machine, before like GPUs and this kind of thing. And he was already showing that basically this model could work to recognize like unwritten digits using end-to-end learning through deep neural networks. So the first idea is that the technology we're working on, they have much more capabilities than before. They can work at much bigger scale. They can do much better things. But the core concept are actually not that new. That's important to know. So of course, we are not at the unwritten character recognition anymore. We can do much more. And so basically, I would like to show you an example of the very rapid progress that we've been doing in the last 3 years or 5. So on the left, is when you give the picture, this is what the AlexNet network was capable of doing. So if you remember the previous talk, actually, Ricardo explained what the AlexNet network was. It was one of the main big breakthroughs in 2012 in terms of image recognition with deep neural networks, because it won the famous ImageNet challenge. So what AlexNet was capable of doing was basically you show an image, and it's basically able to give you the category of what the image is. So basically for an image, it says that this is a person, which is good, but not like super full of information if you want to do like complex tasks with it. So since then, we've been trying to push the frontier about what we can do with this method in terms to provide a better understanding for the machine of what an image is. So basically, the next step, well, 3 years later, was basically to add what's called like segmentation and also multi-category. So basically, here you don't do just one label; you have multiple labels, and you try to give the boundary about where the objects are. Okay? And now, basically, this is the state of where we are. We can actually do that with a much better precision, and we can even do it by adding what we call pose estimation, which is that on top of actually recognizing the object, on top of even being able to segment the boundaries, we're also able to basically put the skeleton of someone, which gives you a lot of information about what the action is happening. And so you see, in like 5 years, we go from just one word to describe an image to basically this representation, which is much more complete and can be done to do much more cool stuff. And what's pretty cool is that we can actually make it work on videos. So basically, it can work on videos, and so what we do for images can actually work from video clip. I would like to play it again because I really like the skills of this man. So you see, it works very well, and you see the pose that is following him very closely. So that's actually very cool, and we use it at Facebook to do all the work we do on video processing. But even better, what we showed at F8 is that basically we can make this work on mobile. So this is basically working on real time, at 5 frames per second. You can actually detect the person and put also the skeleton on them. So this is going to be part of a lot of new application of what you can do with perception are going to be using this kind of technology very soon. And what you can do with it, some examples of stuff we do. Let's say you took a video or clip of like when you were at the beach. It was very nice, but then actually this happens in front of it and you don't like it. Well, you use your algorithm, you do the segmentation, and then you just remove it. Okay, so that's actually pretty cool, very easy, and that's something that the segmentation can do today for video. These are also other examples of stuff that we presented at F8, that we can do when you have a better understanding of images. You can actually try to basically recognize the object, and so you can attach like some tags to them, some information like from the wine bottle. You can actually, when you recognize the space, and this is not only segmentation, this is also using some other technology that we released. You can actually try to do some augmented reality on the scenes, rather by adding like funny objects or some words, or even putting some very nice like effect on the walls. And the objective for us is to be able to run all that on mobile all the time. Something that I don't show here, but what Ricardo presented before, which is called style transfer, is something where you take a painting and you take a picture, and you can merge the two together to basically have the picture with the style of the painting. It's something where we did a lot of advances here now, and actually we made this able to run on mobile as well. So you can actually take picture on Facebook and transform it into a painting on your phone. That was the perception. But of course, this is not AI. We want to go deeper than that. We don't want to be able just to recognize the object, even though we do it better. We want to go beyond. So basically, the next step we do is what we call here understanding and learning. And we can start with actually also perception. So you take an image, you do the perception, you recognize the object, and then you try to go deeper. You say, okay, the machine, can you tell me what's on the image? Can you basically create a legend, a caption for it? So it's called caption, caption recognition. And so basically these are examples that appeared like 2 or 3 years ago, and that showed, and the AI community was like pretty amazed by this. So really these 2 pictures were given to a machine, and the machine generated the caption below. So for the first one, a man riding a wave on a surfboard in the water, so which is like exactly perfect description. And for the other one, a giraffe standing on the grass next to a tree, which is also like a perfect description. So basically, when people saw that, they say, okay, the machine are getting very smart, and they can really grasp what's the context. They can even generate like perfect caption that fit the image, and also that basically are fluent English. So this was a great achievement, we thought, because you have to be careful. And so basically, if you give like other images that are actually much less common, then you can have very surprising results. So in this case, on the left, the caption for this image was like, an airplane is parked on the tarmac of an airport, which is basically a bit surprising when you see what's happening. And on the other one, a man is riding a motorcycle on the beach, okay? Which is a pretty weird interpretation. But if you see that, it gives you basically a better understanding of how the machine is actually working. It's not actually doing like a full reasoning about what's happening in the scene, trying to connect everything with like past knowledge, etc. It's more like trying to identify object and then generating a sentence that is the most likely given the object I recognized. So on the left, I recognize a road and I recognize a plane, okay? Well, all these machines are fed with like billions of examples of data. Most of the time, when you see a plane, it's either in the sky or on an airport, okay? If it's in the sky, you don't see a road. If it's on the airport, you see something that looks like a road. So I detect a road and an airplane. Bam, it's an airplane that is parked on the tarmac of an airport. You don't go further. For the other, it's the same. I detect a motorcycle. I detect the sand and the dirt. Well, if I have sand and dirt, it's someone who's riding a motorcycle on the beach, you know, which is like completely wrong. But if you just see the image as being like 2 objects and you forget everything else, and you don't have common sense, then basically that's what you would do. And if you go back at the example before, what I could do is that basically it's actually straightforward. On the left, the machine is detecting a man and water, okay? In which occasion do you have a man standing on water? Almost never, except when someone is surfing, okay? So that's pretty obvious. If you detect a man and water standing, it's mostly that he's surfing. And what do you surf on? Well, always on waves. So actually, it's pretty easy to do, like, if you're surfing in the water. So basically, this one doesn't have a much deep understanding, actually. And the other one is even easier. When you detect a giraffe is always standing. So if I detect a giraffe, to say a giraffe standing is obvious. It doesn't take any more reasoning. This is always working. And then you say standing on the grass. A giraffe is always standing on the grass. And next to a tree, the probability that a giraffe is going to be next to a tree in an image is huge. So basically, this caption could be just generated if you just knew that you had a giraffe in the picture, right? So people got fooled, but they're not fooled again anymore by thinking that basically the machine has an understanding of what's on the image, whereas the machine was just detecting few objects and trying to generate something that makes sense given these objects. And that's very interesting findings for us, because basically these are examples that help us to try to go deeper. And a way to go deeper is the task that came after, which is called visual question answering. So in visual question answering, basically, it's a bit like the same, except that you give an image and you give a question. And now you basically ask the machine, okay, can you answer this question given the image? And if you just look, for instance, at the question on the left, on the right, sorry, is this a vegetarian pizza? For everybody here, it should be pretty easy if you see that the weird thing on top are actually meat. Because you detect that there's meat, you know that vegetarians don't eat meat, so the answer is no. But for a machine, it's actually super hard, because you have to combine multiple things. So you have to combine the perception that we talked before, you have to detect that there is meat, which is not obvious. Then you have to know that vegetarians don't eat meat, which means that you have like some knowledge about the world, some common sense knowledge, which you could add to a machine, but it may not be the same machine that knows how to detect meat. Okay? And then you need to have reasoning, which is that if I have this information that vegetarian don't eat meat, and if I detect meat, then it means that basically this is not vegetarian. Okay? Everything is obvious for us. We do it very often, all the time. For a machine, this is actually complicated. So to go deeper into the reasoning, something we do is that we try to remove the perception aspect from it, because perception is a problem by itself. And we said, okay, can we actually try to find some examples in where we can just test if a machine is able to do some simple reasoning outside of any perception context to try to see where we're at. And so that's when we came out with what is called like the baby task, which were like this very simple task, where basically you give a story to a machine, very simple story, like John is in the playground, Bob picked up the football, John picked up the football, Bob went to the kitchen, where is the football, okay? This is like straightforward. You just have to go through like 2 sentences. The answer is easy. But what was very surprising for us is that when we released that in February 2015, most of the algorithms that are supposed to be intelligent were not able to solve this example. Okay? So that was very interesting. And the way we worked with this kind of synthetic stories was like, basically, you can make them as complicated as you want. You can make stories that are more and more complicated, that require to look at more and more facts. And by this, you can actually take a test for the machine to know how hard it can reason, and then go deeper and deeper. And so basically what happened is that at first, during the last 2 years, a lot of people actually from all over the world use this test to try to basically test their machine. And so right after we released it, a few months later, people were able to solve some of them, and then they were able to solve more and more complex ones. And actually, we released that 20 different types of problems, and they've only been solved like a couple of months ago, okay? So which means that when you solve this task, it doesn't mean that your machine is very, very intelligent, but it means that at least some very simple trick like this, the machine can solve them. And that's also like some kind of a prerequisite, which is very important for us. But of course, we don't want to stay into like artificial stories, very simple stories. We would like to go deeper in terms of like more like complicated system, where we would like to do question answering maybe in more complex setting. So the latest work we did to follow up this work is basically to try the same thing, but instead of giving like a small story, a few sentences, you give the whole Wikipedia, okay? So basically, like the way you would search an encyclopedia to find an answer to a question, you just give a question to the machine, and then you ask them, okay, you have all Wikipedia, all these articles, you have to read them and try to find which one is the correct one. And so that's what we presented a couple of months ago. The first work like this, which we call like Doctor QA, for Doctor Question Answer. And basically it works, the process is actually pretty simple. You give it a question, it goes on Wikipedia, it uses some kind of like search engine that we built inside to retrieve like a short list of articles, let's say 10 articles that look like the most relevant to the question. And then we have a second system that is very similar to the one we use on the synthetic stories, who's going to read all the paragraphs of all the articles, and for each the paragraph is going to propose an answer given what it read on the paragraph. And then the system is going to choose among all these answers for all the paragraphs which one is supposed to be the best one. And the answer can be any length, it can be one word, multiple words, a full sentence, etc., because you can ask any question to it. So it's not perfect, it's still a research project, but it's something very interesting. And so we create a small app that we use internally, and you can ask a lot of funny questions. So we can ask who invented convolutional neural networks, which is something that was presented before, and that we use all the time in perception. And the system answer, I would say Yann Lequin, who's actually the boss of FAIR. So it's not even like on purpose, but and actually Yann invented that like 25 years ago, as I showed you. You can also, who will solve AI, which is a pretty open-ended question, and there is no maybe definite answer, but actually the machine says computers, which is pretty likely, maybe, at least they will help. And then you can ask a question about what is the energy source of the matrix. So you go into a different thing, you have to ask a question about a movie and something within the plot of a movie, which is much harder, so you have to go very deep into the understanding of an article. And basically the system is able to say their body's heat and electrical activity. So it's able to basically go within the plot of the movie to find the answer, which is very nice, and etc., etc. So this is very exciting for us. This is just the first step. It's failing a lot of questions as well. But we like the way that we can go from the synthetic stories to like real conditions. Then I would like to skim a bit to the two last part now. The first part is about prediction, which is something which is very important for us. If you want to go deeper into a machine that basically understands the world and is able to work into like general condition with the world, we think that something that's very important is that the machine is able to basically have an idea of what the action that the machine would take could have on the environment and on people and on the environment around it. So the very simple experiment that we do to try to do that is basically to try to ask the machine to predict the next frame in a video. Okay? So because if you can predict the next frame of a video, it basically you get to have an understanding about how the world works, how the objects are moving, what is the physics of the world, this kind of stuff. And so if you look on the left, the first frame are actually the video, and when it turns red around, it's because the frame has been generated by a computer. Okay? And so basically you can see, it's pretty quick, but you can see that basically the machine is able to tell that the person are going to move forward. So that's very interesting. The machine understood that when people are marching, they're actually going the same way. They don't disappear, they don't jump, they don't move backward. But there is something very weird happening for the trumpets. They basically seem to explode. Okay? There's this big like burst of yellow, which is pretty unlikely. And why is this happening? It's because basically the machine just tried to find what could be the next possible future. But for the trumpet, people can play up, down, they can move. So basically the position of the trumpet is pretty hard. It's always in this area, but it can be in multiple directions. And what the machine does, it just basically it's going to do an average and say, okay, the trumpet is roughly here. And so it gives you like this basically yellow cloud, which is a bit weird and completely non-natural because the machine don't have any idea of what an object is. And so this is something we'd like to fix. Another way we try to do to have the intuition of physics is that we build these very simple blocks, okay? And we basically train a machine to say, can you tell me if this is going to fall or not, right? This is something that's obvious for us because we have this sense of physics. For the machine, there is nothing like this. And so this kind of experiment is very interesting to try to say. You know, if you're on the top, you basically see what's actually happening. And if you're below, this is what the machine is predicting. So it gets a bit fuzzy, but the machine is predicting that it's going to fall, and even where the blocks are going to fall, which is very nice. The last part is about planning, and I will go very quickly on that. But basically, planning, developing strategy is something that requires an environment where you can go multiple steps ahead. So there have been some work on some board games, like chess or Go. Right now, the next frontier on AI is more about like more real-time strategy games, that where actually the strategy requires like multiple scale, etc. And so basically, we have a team at FAIR that works on StarCraft. So basically, to try to play against human on StarCraft, which is very interesting because you have like multiple levels of strategy you have to develop. The game are extremely complicated. The action space is enormous, and so that's a very good playground for us. That's all I wanted to tell you today. I finish on this to say that we are still on the more like the 10 years roadmap, so we are not done yet, so that's the good news for me. And thank you very much for your attention.